You can't beat Iran, but that's okay. He gonna find out the hard way. He is going to find out the hard way. Let's check out a little bit of this interview between Roger Waters and Piers Morgan because it was kind of hilarious. I'm not gonna lie to you. Roger was not. We're not gonna look at all of it, but we're gonna check out some of it.
I knew you'd done it for a long, long time in different 2023 when the Hamas attacks occurred. George Galloway was here last week and he described them as terror attacks. Do you agree with that?
I'm not going to have this conversation.
That's kind of mischaracterizing what George said, but okay. So y'all already see what kind of conversation this has been. So it's the framing for me. It's the framing. Oh, the Hamas attacks, the terrorist attacks, because innocent people were killed. That's weird. Okay, so what about what's happening in West Bank? Like I just said, Piers has nothing to say about that.
I've seen you have it with everybody, and you're. It's a waste of time.
Why?
Because you always reach the same conclusions, and you always waste 10 or 12 minutes.
Let's waste 1 minute. All I ever ask people is, do you condemn what Hamas did?
I condemn the killing of civilians, always.
Why is that the first question, though? Why is that more important to you to condemn what Hamas did rather than condemn what Israel has been doing? And why don't you feel as strongly about what Israel has been doing as you do the need to ask people, do you condemn what Hamas did? No, people don't like when civilians get killed. That's why we told y'all to check Israel a long time ago. Because eventually, if you push somebody far enough, right? What did it say? Whenever change is impossible, a revolution is inevitable. Well, Israel made change impossible. When peaceful change is impossible, a violent revolution is inevitable. Yeah, this is where we're at.
Whoever does it, wherever it is, I condemn war crimes. If Hamas committed war crimes on October the 7th, I condemn. You referred earlier. You referred earlier to my conversation with Glenn Greenwald,
yes,
which happened in December last year, and I was taken to task after that because on his program, and this was only a few weeks after October the 7th, I said I would love to know what happened on October the 7th, so that we can all have a proper. Well, the Israelis won't allow any investigation.
He suggested it might be a false.
You see how he interrupted him. You see how he interrupted him. You see how he interrupted. He's like, I'm trying to explain to you. He's like, I would love to know, because he was going to say, Israel will not allow a proper investigation, not a real one. And he's like, are you suggesting it's a false flag? Are you suggesting it's a false flag? Like, bro, let him. You don't gotta wonder what he's suggesting. He's trying to tell you, Piers. Jesus Christ.
Operation. Well,
implying that Israel created
it. Hang on, maybe false flag's not exactly the right word, but why did
it's obviously not the right word.
Can I finish?
But you're wrong.
All right, never mind.
Roger.
He's wrong about what? He didn't even get a chance to finish his sentence.
Obviously, it wasn't a false flag. And the reason we know that is that Hamas broadcast in real time through video to social media what they were doing. There's nothing false flag about it.
I don't think that he understands what a false flag means. A false flag does not mean it didn't happen. So if that's like what he's, I guess, suggesting, like, no, that's not what a false flag means. A false flag means that could also mean, rather, that something was allowed to happen in order to generate an outcome that other people may not be privy to. Like, that's what people feel about 9/11, for example. Like, the goal was to earn back all that money that collapsed from, Building 7. The goal was to give us a reason to get galvanized behind our military going into Afghanistan, Iraq, being perpetually stationed in the Middle East. Like, that is what a quote unquote false flag is, as in something that was allowed to happen or encouraged to happen because a false flag almost doesn't even work really if lives are not lost. That's what a false flag is. Piers doesn't even know what he's asking. Jesus Christ.
Not saying that part of the Palestinian resistance movement didn't cross that wire fence into what's called
2,000 of them
Hang
did.
on, 2,000, however many, it doesn't really matter how many it was. I'm not saying they didn't do that. I'm not saying that didn't happen at all. What I'm saying is, there's all this talk about, does Israel have a right to defend itself? Why didn't Israel defend itself that morning?
Say it again for one time, for the one time.
On his program, and this was only a few weeks after October the 7th, I said, I would love to know what happened on October the 7th so that we can all have a proper... Well, the Israelis won't allow any investigation.
You suggested it might be a false flag operation.
Well,
implying that Israel created
it. Hang on. Maybe false flag's not exactly the right word, but why did
it's obviously not the right word.
Can I finish?
But you're wrong.
All right, never mind.
Roger. It obviously wasn't a false flag. And the reason we know that is that Hamas broadcast in real time through video to social media what they were doing. There's nothing false flag about it.
I'm not saying that part of the Palestinian resistance movement didn't cross that wire fence into what's called...
2,000 of them
Hang on, 2,000, however many, it doesn't really matter how many it was. I'm not saying they didn't do that. I'm not saying that didn't happen at all. What I'm saying is, there's all this talk about, does Israel have a right to defend itself? Why didn't Israel defend itself that morning?
Boy, that's a bar right there. There's all that talk about Israel defending itself. Why didn't they defend themselves that morning? In case you don't know, I covered this a long time ago. Israel knew the attack was coming, at least months in advance. There's plenty of indicators in communique that show that Israel knew that this particular attack was coming on this specific day. I mean, including their own stock market and ours, but definitely their own stock market as well. There is a lot of evidence that suggests that Israel knew and did nothing about it. Not unlike what happened with 9/11, right? A lot of people suggest that the U.S. knew what was going to happen, which is why George W. ended up somehow in Florida that day, reading a book upside down, which is also weird, to a bunch of kids. So, yeah, if they got it right, if they believe in defending themselves, and that's such a big deal for them, why the hell didn't they?
Why did they wait 7 hours before they started machine gunning?
It was a catastrophic
everyone?
failure of defense and security.
And this is the most efficient security.
Yeah, it's catastrophic. That's why when this is over,
all right, you don't want to have that conversation. Neither do I. But wouldn't it?
I just answered you what I think.
Hang on. Wouldn't it be great to have that conversation at some? And wouldn't it be great if we could have an actual, real investigation beyond the very good Al Jazeera documentary that we all saw that came out, and all the great work that the Grey Zone and Electronic Intifada people did in debunking all the filthy, disgusting lies that the Israelis told after October the 7th.
Like what?
About burning babies.
I know he did not just say like what.
And women being raped, which were all completely...
Actually, women were raped.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
Well, there's no evidence.
It's been established by the United Nations.
You can say anything that you want, but there's no evidence.
But actually, there is extensive evidence.
There is no evidence. There is no evidence. There's no evidence. Even the UN, they were like, the only evidence they had that there was even idea of sexual assault committed. Like, they don't even have evidence legitimately of that. They said, we're just going off of digital photos and hearsay. But later on, remember, I did a whole video about this, about why, I don't know why the hell they even put this up at the top. It should have been something at the bottom that they put, because there was no solid evidence. There's no forensic evidence that suggested, even according to Israeli sources, there are no forensic evidence that support anyone was raped. But they even said, yeah, we don't really got no physical evidence to suggest that this is exactly what happened, but based off of eyewitness accounts solely. I mean, but these are the same eyewitness accounts that witnessed beheaded babies and babies being cooked in the ovens, right? There is no evidence. That's been debunked. There's a New York Times former New York Times journalist who got fired for pushing that theory because she got exposed as a liar. Piers. Like, this is, look, why are you not as dedicated? Because he acts like he's like objective and I'm here to learn. I'm here to just have a conversation. You know, it doesn't have to be somebody's right and somebody's wrong. Then why are you not as eager to hear the truth about the other side as you are to defend the truth, which are in reality falsehoods, about the side that you initially took?
No
sexual assault and rape. Well, there is.
Okay, well, all right. Now,
also, we know what Hamas broadcast on social media.
Calm down. Roger, calm down. Don't sink to his level. All right, I won't.
What level?
But stop shouting. Stop shouting back. Let him interrupt you as much as you. Okay, all right. Sorry, that's what you're saying.
Look, let's not prolong the discussion about whether you believe.
That really be the demon in your head, though, when you're debating somebody. That really be like, yo, should I just cut this motherfucker off and start going crazy? I be having that conversation. I'm like, just let him talk. Just let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead. Because you be ready to choke somebody out. Because this man's purposely obfuscating. He is not trying to hear anything I have to say. He's literally making things up as he goes along. He's like, no, there's proof. There's definitely evidence. Like, no, bro, the UN report came out and they even said, now, like, Israel won't let us investigate. And also, there's not really any forensic evidence. Sorry.
Believe what happened on October the 7th, other than me just to simply ask you.
Wouldn't it be nice to be able to look at all the evidence and come to a grown-up conclusion rather than just saying this happened or that happened or this didn't?
Well, it's now been established that 1,200 people were killed, of whom 400 were military, which means 800 innocent people were killed. Over 250 were then kidnapped, including Holocaust survivors who were grandparents and babies. Do you accept that that happened?
What, the people were kidnapped?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you accept the Holocaust survivors and babies were kidnapped?
I don't know about that. Oh yeah, I did. I saw one released. In the first set of release, there was somebody who was a Holocaust
Why are you not
survivor.
Curious to read about that, though?
Well, I did.
Huh?
I did read about it.
I mean, you made a big thing of reading.
He's like, why are you not curious to read about it? He's like, oh no, I feel like I actually thought I think I did see that. The Holocaust survivor, the babies, multiple babies being kidnapped. That's actually, I don't even know if that's actually been validated or confirmed. I know that's been an accusation, but they also said that multiple babies had their heads cut off. Right? They also said that there are people kidnapped who were not kidnapped. They were never confirmed as being kidnapped. There are hostages that were supposedly dead that were not dead. So like this is a fact, but it's weird that he's just like, why aren't you excited to read about that? Why don't you? He's like, bro, I just told you that as far as the Holocaust survivors go, yeah, I think I did see one, if I'm remembering correctly. He's like, it's just so weird. It's just like, is he doing this on purpose, guys? Or is Piers just an idiot? I'm genuinely curious. Let me read some of these super chats really quick. When Putin, Kim Jong-un, and Xi Jinping find out President Kamala is a woman of easy virtue, they'll pass around like a dog in a biker. Yeah, I don't know why I want to ride a bike that everybody done rode. I don't know how I feel about that one. Eric Rousseau, Piers is worse than the tortoise and the hare. At least those two old English farts are funny. Every time someone says that Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no friends in the Middle East. An important quote to keep in mind, as always, Sparky. Make Israel Syria again. In those Ottoman Empire days, Levant Jews got along fine with their neighbors, whether Muslim, Christian, or otherwise. That is a very true statement. I don't know why people keep thinking that Jews and Muslims did not get along. The problems with Jews and Muslims actually started like where it got violent after Israel became a state. And a lot of people don't really realize that. Like, yeah. And also a lot of the Arab and Desi Jews moved to Israel after Israel became a state because you got like all these crazy benefits and you were going to be protected. And you knew like it wasn't like Bibi Milikowski was living in Syria before Israel became a state, right? Like these Polish Jews, these German Jews, like Russian Jews, they weren't living in the Middle East. So it's like their historic account of what happened prior to Israel doesn't exist. They just tell people that look at the numbers that happened like the numbers before, as far as Israel or Jewish people, living in these Middle Eastern countries versus after Israel. It's like, oh yeah, all those Jewish people moved to where they get free healthcare, free money, like all these benefits, citizenship. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like the smart place to go. New land, they were giving out land. Like, yeah, that sounds like a very smart decision to make economically for your family. Right? That's kind of what the fuck. It's weird when people make arguments like that and they make them with a dead ass serious face. Oh man. A fun fact: 1492, the Ottoman Empire sent ships to rescue Jews from the Spanish Inquisition. That is a fact. Yep. Let's continue.
There were a number of old people and young people who were released, I don't know, sometime in November.
The baby's never been released.
I beg your pardon.
The baby was never released. The baby was kidnapped and never.
Oh, so is it babies or baby? Is it babies or baby? Because that boy he done switched up like Caitlyn Jenner now. All right. I need
been released.
Well, Piers, you may or may not just be making it up. I know
making it up.
Babe, Piers, I know you believe nonsense that you're told by Zaka and other people who made up tons of lies about October.
Who's Zaka? Sorry.
Oh, don't be silly.
Who is that? Who are you talking about?
You are kidding now.
Yeah. I don't know who you're talking about.
Zaka, it was an organization collecting bodies, paramedic.
I've never heard of it.
Well, you have no right to be having this conversation at all. What you have to do now, Piers, is go and look through all the documentation that there is and all the video evidence that there is of those paramedic people lying about burned babies and rape and babies in ovens and all the atrocity stories that came out immediately after, excuse me, I haven't finished, immediately after October the 7th, that gave impetus to the idea somehow that to commit genocide on the people of Gaza would be a reasonable defense against all those atrocities, which is the story that you, among others, have tried to sell to your audience.
No, I haven't.
I
just tried.
Come on, bro. Come on, bro. We got the clips, dog. We got the tapes. We ain't gonna really, Piers. You don't remember how old boy just I wish I could remember his name. The Palestinian guy, the comedian, used to just come on here and literally just wipe the floor with you. I think you invited him on twice, which was kind of weird because he embarrassed you so much. Like, yeah, that's the side you were fighting for. You were pushing the same narrative. Uncritically, because it ain't like Piers uses any facts or evidence to support his points on these shows, which is even weirder. They can get away with this. But like me and Nick said earlier, you don't get paid to be smart. You don't get paid the big bucks to be smart and intelligent and factual. That's just weird. He's just like, nah, what? No, I wasn't. Even though he gave a whole speech before going on with George Galloway about how he had to be moved on that issue. He don't remember his show from last week.
Try to get to the facts.
I'm sorry. I apologize for accusing.
Do you believe?
Well, hang on. You need to look up Zaka. Look it up.
I'll look it up.
And then maybe we could have another conversation. Because until you know that story,
You seem to have done extremely little reading about anything that happened to Israelis that day.
There's literally nothing that indicates that. That's just a weird. If you go back and watch the rest of the interview, there's nothing that indicated that he doesn't know what happened. In fact, it sounds like he knows exactly what happened. But it's just like, that's what Piers does. And also, how did the focus get back? Why hasn't there been a question about for example, how do you feel about the fact that there were actually thousands of Palestinian hostages that were being held before October 7th? Has that influenced your opinion? Do you know about the fact they weren't charged? Like, give us a little bit of background information on that from what you know. Why doesn't he ask about that? Right? Because he pretends to be like this objective and curious journalist trying to see both sides. Why are you putting in more inherent value on the lives of a few Israelis versus hundreds upon thousands of Palestinians? Why are you putting more inherent value on the lives of the oppressor rather than, or putting equal value, even. If you even put equal value, that would be great. But you don't. You put more value on the lives of the oppressor than the hundreds of thousands of lives of the oppressed. And it's obvious. It's obvious, Piers. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose. I don't know if he's doing it on accident. I don't know if he's just an idiot. I kind of just want to know now, because it can't be no way you just this dumb.
It's nonsense.
That's it, guys.
I've had
Killing the
long
British stereotype for me.
conversations, not least with my friend Gideon Levy, who's a journalist in Israel who writes.
But do you actually believe Israel had anything to do with what happened that day?
Israel?
You suggested it was a false flag. That would imply the Israeli government had something to do with it.
No,
He didn't. He actually didn't say that. Why does he keep saying that?
I've no idea. Why didn't they respond, though? They've tended always.
But you believe is it logical that they would perpetrate that attack on their own people?
I've no idea.
No idea.
They definitely attacked their own people.
Yes,
that is
did.
absolutely cast iron. All those piles of cars, they were destroyed by Apache missiles from helicopters. Hamas didn't have helicopters.
Do you think Hamas killed anybody that day?
Yeah.
What? Bro, they did a military operation. Of course they killed people. Also, how did he? So you just made this huge claim about Israel killing their own people. He tells you, yeah, dog, we know for a fact they use Apache helicopters and they kill their own people. Israeli military officials have admitted not only using the Apache helicopters and killing Israelis, but they use artillery from tanks. They shelled houses in the settlements, knowing that they would kill their own people. And you just kind of gloss over that? How do you do that? You just answer the question. He always does that. Answer the question. And then a person answers the question because I don't know what answer he thought he was going to get out of him, but he answered the question. He's like, yeah, no, that's a fact. That actually happened. Oh, okay. What about Hamas? You think Hamas kill people? Yeah, it was a military operation. It's kind of was the point, actually. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it. I've never met a single person that is anti-Zionist who was like, Hamas didn't kill anybody on October 7th. I've never heard that argument being made by anybody.
Of course I do. Yeah, and they probably kill civilians as well.
Well, they acts of terrorism.
No.
To kill a civilian is a war crime.
Act of terror?
Well, to use the word terrorism is really dangerous and difficult, because you have to remember that people fighting on behalf of Palestine liberation have a legal and moral
obligation.
What's the word I'm trying to search for? Not just a right. They have
obligation.
No, they have a right to fight back against the oppressor.
But they don't have a right to commit war crimes.
If somebody invades your country, kicks all your people out of their homes, steals everything, and is stealing all your land and occupies all your land for 75 years, you have an absolute right to armed resistance.
But not to commit war crimes.
That invasion.
Not to commit war crimes.
No, not to commit war crimes, to arm.
Oh, if war crimes are so important, why are you not asking about the war crimes that Israel has committed and they are actively committing? Right now, I just told you, they're about to annex the entirety of the West Bank. 500 people in the West Bank have been killed that have nothing to do with Gaza, Hamas, or the hostages. We found out about this camp where they just torture Palestinians. The war crimes have been committed by Israel. That is, once again, how we arrived here. And you're like, yeah, but what about war crimes? That's a war crime. That's a war crime. Are they acts of terror? So I just want to know, why are you asking about terrorism? Is there maybe, I don't know, a skin color issue that you might have that is forcing you to decide that I'm going to ask about acts of terror from this group of people, but not about this group of people? Because that's what it's a religious thing, maybe, perhaps. It's this word that sometimes we throw around, bigotry, perhaps. I don't know. Because it's everything that anybody from Afghanistan and Iraq did to resist the United States were acts of terror. But when the U.S. went to those countries when they shouldn't have been, were killing innocent people, well documented. Whenever shout out to Julian Assange, whenever it got and Chelsea Manning, of course, whenever it got shown that the U.S. was killing journalists, that wasn't it's not an act of terror. Those weren't acts of terror, Piers. Whenever Israel targeted not only journalists covering their genocide since October 7th, but their families, that wasn't an act of terror, or at least it isn't worth posing the question whether or not those were acts of terror. And you can disagree, Piers, but you don't even have the decency to pretend to do journalism, to ask that question. But to Piers, it just didn't happen, right? It's almost as if there is another motivating factor determining, at least in Piers' minds, when we should consider something an act of terror versus when we shouldn't even ask about it or talk about it or look at it. And I promise you, it ain't just the uniforms that are being worn. I promise you.
Do you believe Hamas committed war crimes on October the 7th?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
And you've seen what they actually
well,
broadcast.
No, the Israelis won't allow anybody to investigate it. And
Hamas,
it's Israel. And
Hamas literally broadcast it from their own GoPros onto social media. They were live streaming the attacks on...
Actually, there's nothing, they didn't broadcast any war crimes. Like we did see like the broadcasts and clips of Hamas going in on October 7th. We didn't see any war crimes being committed from the digital recordings. So I don't know why he keeps saying that. But there was recordings of them going in there. We all saw that. We saw what was happening. But I don't know why he said that there was proof of war crimes, because even the UN, which was trying to be judicious in the way that it covered that situation by painting Hamas and their actions as worse than what they were overall without any evidence. And even the UN said they didn't have enough evidence. They're like, we're just kind of going off of photos and hearsay. Even with all that, there's a reason for it, right? There's a reason that Israel and their allies keep saying war crime. I'm like Roger. I'm like, they probably did commit war crimes. There's got to be at least one or two in there, at least, because that's what happens during operations where innocent people are involved. It's just the way it goes. But what I'm saying is, it's just weird. Like, they focus on the war crime, the alleged war crimes that Israel won't even let them investigate. It's like, okay, it's cool. If they really truly committed war crimes on a mass scale and a systemic level, where like the war crimes were being ordered by a higher authority, then let us investigate to find out. But Israel won't even let it happen. So it makes you assume that if there were war crimes committed, the incidents were isolated and there is at least, at bare minimum, no proof. Or if there were war crimes committed, maybe they were committed by Israel, and Israel at this juncture, because of how many homes they blew up, how many bombs they dropped at their own people, they don't know if those particular Israeli civilians were killed by Israel's artillery or Hamas. And they have no way of determining that. And that in of itself, in my opinion, renders anything from the Zionist side, from the Israeli side, incredulous. I don't.
Jewish people.
We're wasting time. I'm not saying that some people from Hamas didn't fire their guns at people who were not armed. I'm sure they did.
Okay.
And I condemn it. I condemn that act. Okay. But it cannot be seen.
Which, by the way, I condemn too. If anybody killed any innocent people, I would condemn it. And if I was a soldier who saw it, I would stop it. So like, and that's not even a controversial thing to say. And a lot of people actually say that. But Piers is like one of those people that act like, yeah, man, everybody who's pro-Palestine supports killing innocent civilians, when we all like, no, we would have preferred that it never had gotten to this point. As we always say, it's like how we got to this point with Biden and Trump, right? How did we get here? Stop complaining about the fact that we're here. We already know we're here. But the real question is, how did we let things get so bad that these are our two options? How could we have been asleep? How could we have been so naive? How could we have been so apathetic, so disengaged as a people to allow it to have gotten to this point? Because that is one thing that those people in Israel that were in those settlements have to at least be cognizant of. Those people that were at that musical festival, they knew where they were at. That is a fact. They knew the land that they were on. They were literally looking at camps, at Palestinian settlements. Like you could see them from that festival. Like that was, you could see that's why that was one of the first places they went. They knew where they were at. They were basically, I mean, that's like almost like gloating. In other words, there has to be some accountability there. There just has to be. I'm sorry, it's not pretty, right? It's not, it seems a little bit cold to say, but like you knew where you were partying at, bro. I would never. Imagine me going to somebody said, hey man, we're gonna go to a rave in Libya, and I'm fully aware that 2 streets down, they doing slave auctions. And then I end up in the middle of a Libyan revolution in that same day, and I'm surprised when the slaves come over where I'm at a rave and they just start popping off. Why were you there? You knew what's going on here. And that's not even a situation where I'm living in the area. I'm a part of the oppression. I just happen to be there. Imagine if you know that the majority of these people, they live on your land. They are part of the theft of your land. They have worked or are currently working in the military that oppresses and kills your people. At what point are those fully grown adults? Because don't get it twisted. Everybody keeps talking about their kids. Those weren't kids at the music festival. Those are adults, the majority of whom have served or were serving in the IDF.
That October the 7th cannot be seen on its own. This is after 75 years.
I agree. I didn't for a moment suggest it was. What I was curious about was that you tweeted at 4:00 that day, October the 7th, but not about the attacks. You were promoting your new album. On October the 8th, again, promotion of your new album, nothing about the attacks. It was only on October the 14th, a week later, that you released a video about it. Why did it take you so long to respond to what was one of the worst terrorist attacks of modern times?
Once again, I rebuke the claim that October 7th was a terrorist attack. I won't call it that. It was a military operation. You can't call what happened in Afghanistan a military operation, but call this a terrorist attack. You can't call what happened in Iraq a military operation, but call it a terrorist attack. You can't call what we're doing in Syria, where the U.S. specifically, and actually Israel, are working with an actual terrorist organization, calling that a military operation, but call this a terrorist attack. You can't call what Israel does in Lebanon, in Syria, and what they're doing right now in Gaza a military operation, but call an attempt to go get your hostages back, right? Because that's what this was for. This has been widely known. It was to retaliate, but also to create incentive to trade for the hostages that Israel had before October 7th happened. That's what we call a military operation. Like, we're not going to play this label game because like my good friend Nick says, I say it all the time too, words are important. There's a reason they try to label the entirety of Iran's military a terrorist organization. Like, you can't label an entire military a terrorist organization. The fuck? That doesn't even make any sense. I mean, unless you want to call the U.S. military or the IDF. I mean, to be honest, right? Because now I don't even know how you define terrorism anymore. Where is the line? Because the line doesn't seem to be a line. It seems to be a spectrum, and the spectrum seems to be a color spectrum. Right? Or you're Russian. Basically, that is how they define it. It's a spectrum of color. Sometimes religion is involved, or you're Russian. That seems to be how they determine whether or not whatever operation you're conducting is a terrorist operation or a military operation. We're almost done here, by the way, guys.
Though, if you ask me to remember what happened on every day of all those intervening days, I think I was trying to find out what had actually happened because it was very, very confused. And the stories that were coming out were mind-bogglingly confusing in every way. And that's what I said to Glenn Greenwald when I did my interview with him. I said, I'd really like to know what happened. And I still would.
Okay.
And I think if I could wave a magic wand, I would have an international UN-supported investigation into all the events of October
Well, the UN
and
the UN has investigated it, and they have established there was sexual assault and rape.
No, they haven't.
No, they didn't. They literally, y'all remember I covered this. I went through the report, y'all. Y'all remember. They literally said, remember I was pissed. I literally said, I have a whole video about how pissed I am that they went out of their way to not even make allegations. They said, this is what hearsay and some pictures said. But we actually don't have any evidence. But here are all the things that we know to be factually true about the war crimes and the acts of sexual assault, sexual violence, and sexual humiliation that Israel participated in. They put all that shit at the bottom, but the hearsay and the eyewitness stuff that they literally say we have no forensics evidence of, we have actually no way to prove any of this stuff to be true. They put all that stuff at the top. I whole video about it. Y'all should go check it out if you haven't yet. After this, because what Piers is saying is a lie. Piers is going off of what some people, the parts that some mainstream media outlets wrote in their articles, leaving out the fact when they wrote these articles that the UN said in that same report that there is just hearsay and pictures off of Twitter, basically, and that there is no forensic evidence. I mean, I shouldn't even have to say that, because the whole reason that the New York Times article got debunked, where they were making all these claims about mass sexual assault and rape, the reason that article got debunked was because there was no forensics evidence. So we shouldn't even have had to have that report. But we already arrived there. So at least you could have done, before coming on here and trying to argue with Roger Waters about it and make these massive claims, because that's another thing. What, those brown people are predators. Meanwhile, we know for a fact that Israel commits sexual assault, not only against, like in Gaza, like during this war, against prisoners of war, against hostages who have never been charged with anything, using metal rods to sodomize male prisoners. Piers has literally asked zero about this, people. And as much as I can appreciate the fact that at least I guess he's willing to have people like Roger Waters on, what the hell? You can't say, it breaks my brain. How can you act like you were so he acts like he's passionate about sexual assault. No, you're passionate about sexual assault if you think it's being committed by a black or brown person against a white person or a Jewish person in this particular case, or an Israeli in this particular case. You act like you're passionate about war crimes, but you're not. You're only passionate if you believe the war crime was committed by a black or brown person against a Jewish or Israeli person or a Zionist person in this particular case, civilian specifically. You act like you care if it's an act of terrorism, but you don't really care if it's an act of terrorism. What you care about is to know whether or not the military operation was committed by a black or brown person, or was it committed by one of the U.S. or Western Empire flunkies, like in this particular case, the IDF. You don't actually care about these issues that you are feigning empathy and sympathy about. You don't care about them. You don't. That's what's pissing me off. He acts like he's so passionate about it. But he isn't. Because I mean, like, let's keep it a band, right? If like you were really that passionate about any of this shit, then it wouldn't have taken until after October 7th for you to invite on Bassem Youssef, Roger Waters, George Galloway, people who speak on behalf of the Palestinian movement. You would have been talking about this stuff before October 7th. But we have the videos of what Israel is doing to Palestinian prisoners, guys. It didn't come up in his conversation with George Galloway last week, not from his side. George had to bring it up, even after he was made aware of what happened. Notice how it hasn't come up again. The way that he asked the questions is never, how do you feel about the way Israel did da-da-da-da-da? It's, how do you not think Hamas did this? Do you not think Hamas did this? Do you think it's terrorism? Do you think it's this? It's the same old trope. That's what's so infuriating about the shit. That is what's so infuriating to me about, because you just know, like, every black or brown guy knows what it's like to be painted as or seen as just a predator because of the way you were born. Muslim men, by and large, I'm sure, understand what it's like to be viewed as a predator because of the religion they practice. Like, fucking Catholicism don't have a history of protecting its little rapey, boy diddling Catholic priests. Literally notorious. Y'all talking about what Muhammad did, whatever, thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. Bro, y'all got Catholic priests doing that today. Now, Oji, oi, this moment, this minute, some Catholic priest is getting away with sexually assaulting a child and getting moved to a different state, moved to a different country. But y'all worried about Muslims. Rather than the system, the institution of religion, and also the political institutions that work together to protect this version of Christianity. But y'all worried about Muslims? Come on, bro. Come on. Is it so is it really about that, guys? So is it really about sexual assault? Because where do all the pedophiles go to hide? If you got one of them cute little Jewish last names, where do they go to hide, guys? They don't go to Dubai. They don't go to Egypt. They don't go to Iraq. You know where they go to? They go to Israel. They go to Israel. Israel has the most sexual, like, predators per capita, or specifically pedophiles per capita, than any other country in the world.
But I've read those reports.
Well, you need to read more.
That is not what they say.
That is what they said. 364 civilians were killed. Many, many, many were wounded by Hamas at the Supernova Sukkot gathering, the open-air music festival. And after that...
The music in that little film that you saw of me suggesting that the Israelis should say, we're very, very, very sorry that we did this horrific thing that we've been doing, and we'll go away now, and hopefully you can live in peace in this land. Maybe some of us... The music in the back of it is music to a song I wrote around the time that you're talking about called Under the Rubble. It's a very short song. There's very little to it. It just says, Papa, Papa, I want to go home. Papa, please take me home. That's a verse. And the second verse is, Mama, Mama, Daddy stopped breathing. Mama.
Who are you talking about, though?
I'm talking about children dying under the rubble, murdered by the state of Israel.
What about the children who were killed at the music festival?
Bro didn't even take a pause, bro. This man tells you, he's like, yeah, it's about the kids that are dying and people in general who are dying under the rubble, the thousands. But what about the kids at the music festival? No, those were adults. It's a music festival, guys. So those were adults. But, like, Piers didn't even feign empathy. He doesn't even have the capacity. He doesn't even have, like, the self-awareness to feign empathy in that moment. Like, oh, damn, that's crazy. Those are very powerful lyrics given everything that's going on. I understand why you feel the need to write about that. Do you feel the same way about? No. He literally just jumped over that shit. Like, okay, what about, anyway, fuck them. That's literally what just happened. Is that not just, he said, I'm talking about the kids that died in the rubble. Yeah, anyway, fuck them. What about the kids at the music festival? The adults who chose to go there, who bought tickets there, who once again have served or are serving in the IDF, who had the autonomous ability to make a decision to be at that place on the day of October 7th. Not the kids who are literally just living their lives. They woke up one day and they were bombed. Their parents were bombed. Their homes destroyed. Generations of their family wiped out. What? How do you even equivocate those things, Piers? It's like when people will have more sympathy and sorrow for a military soldier, a U.S. soldier that died, being fully aware that if you choose to serve your country, like here, it's voluntary, or in the U.S. rather, it's voluntary. That soldier knew the risk of being a soldier. In the minds of Americans and Westerners, one soldier who volunteered to serve is worth more than thousands of Iraqi lives who had no choice on whether or not they were going to be part of Operation quote unquote Iraqi freedom because of allegedly, right? This is the alleged part, because of attacks on 9/11 that allegedly had something to do with him and weapons of mass destruction that were never found. In the eyes of Westerners and Americans, that one soldier's life is worth grieving over, more so than the thousands of children and civilians that were killed. That is a mental disease, people. I don't know how else. That is a mental disease. That is beyond conditioning. You have a mental disability if you cannot see how fucked up that is. The fact that he just jumped, that is like narcissistic personality disorder for him to be able to just jump like that to the point that he wanted to make. Because it's like he didn't even hear Roger's response. Right? Like that's what it sounded, that's what it looked like. He's like, yeah, no, I'm talking about the kids that are dying under their rubble, thousands of them. Yeah, what about the kids at the music festival though? Yeah. What? Bro, that's insane. I don't understand it, and I guess I'm stressed out about it because I don't understand what mind state, like what kind of human being you have to be, what experiences you've had or have not had that you can't even pretend to sympathize when you just heard that this man wrote a song about the thousands of kids that are stuck under the rubble. Like you didn't even pretend. Janice Anderson, thank you very much for the super chat. He just has people like Waters on for views. He knows his viewership would decline if he only had psychos like him on. It's self-interest. That is 100% fact. You are absolutely right.
Oh my God, there were definitely music festivals goes killed. I feel for them.
Well, 364 would
Hang on a minute. There's 100,000, there's 40,000 under the rubble at least.
I'm just asking you because
it's a false equivalent.
I'm not equivalating anything.
You are.
Yes, that's literally false equivalency. Yes. There's no comparison. I just explained to y'all. There's the one autonomous choice to be at the music festival versus not. There's children that actually died in the rubble versus you're saying they're kids, but they're not kids. They're military age. They had the autonomy to choose to be at that festival. They knew where that festival was even located. It was braggadocious, inconsiderate, insensitive to throw a music festival where you can literally witness the effects of apartheid across the goddamn fence, guys. The life of an apartheid nation across the fence. And you're like, yeah, man, rock on. Hope this Molly kick in soon.
Here's why I've mentioned it, is that Bono from U2 introduced his song Pride in the Name of Love at the Sphere in Vegas.
By the way, if you know Bono, that man is a king of propaganda. I should say king because that would imply he's good at the propaganda, but no. He is literally just a propagandist through and through. Like
he said, in light of what's happened in Israel and
the
Gaza.
Stars of David.
Wait a minute. In the light of what's happened in Israel and Gaza, a song about non-violence seems somewhat ridiculous, even laughable. But our prayers have always been for peace and for non-violence. But our hearts and our anger, you know where that's pointed. So sing with us and those beautiful kids of that music festival. He later
But not them kids who've been killed in Gaza, huh? Not those kids who were killed years and years and years before October 7th happened. Not those kids being held prisoner by Israel and tortured without even being charged. But those Stars of David.
referred to those killed by Hamas that day at the festival as Stars of David. Now, you responded on Al Jazeera by saying anyone who knows Bono should go and pick him up by his ankles and shake him until he stops being an enormous shit. We have to start saying to these people, your opinion is so disgusting and so degrading, sticking up for the Zionist entity.
Yes.
What he did a couple of weeks ago in the Sphere in Vegas, singing about the Stars of David, was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
How do you justify that?
Yep. I like how you're like, yep. Sure, I surely did say that. Yep.
All he was doing was paying a tribute to young music lovers at a music festival who happened to be Jewish.
You see what he just did again? Is we're gonna stop it here, but y'all see what he just did again, right? He was like, he was paying tribute to what you started off by saying, because he forgot the reason that he made the original point. He made the original point to say that, look, Bono was showing respect and paying respects to Palestinians and Israelis. Why can't you do the same thing? Which is ironic, I know, given this conversation we've been having. But that's why he made that point. And he already forgot why, because he's already so stuck in this mode of, why don't you show the same respect to Israelis? So he jumps to, what is your problem? And he don't realize the problem is Bono in that very same statement is completely and totally hypocritical and dismissive of the lives of the Palestinian people. Why are the Jewish adults who chose to be there and were killed Stars of David? What about the Palestinians? What about the Palestinians? What about the Palestinians? I don't know how many times we have to say that. I don't know how many times we have to repeat that, but what about the Palestinians? What about the Palestinians in the West Bank that are being killed as we speak, that the Israeli government is facilitating? They're literally arming settlers in illegal settlements to kill Palestinians, stealing their land from them. But if, God forbid, those Palestinians decide to retaliate, they're terrorists now. What about all the Palestinians that will be killed in the coming weeks in the West Bank, let alone in Gaza? We already know what's going to happen there. But like I just told y'all in the story, there are going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of Palestinians killed in the West Bank. They have plans on annexing the entirety of the West Bank. How do y'all think that looks? How do y'all think they get these lands? You think they hire a real estate agent, get a lawyer as an in-between guy, and they hammer out the details, have a bilateral contract where both parties feel like they've mutually benefited? No, they steal the land, and if the Palestinians resist, they kill them. Or they throw them in jail. Are those Stars of David too? Or are they just an inconvenience? It's out of curiosity. I'm not going to stop talking about this shit because and I'm actually going to try to get somebody on next week because I really want to talk about the Congo too, but it's like, that's just such a convoluted issue. I want to bring an expert on. And so I got to wait until he's available to bring him on. But like, it's just the things that people choose to consider important, the lives that people choose to value, the opinions that seem to hold more weight than others, the disproportionate way you are punished for not holding up an opinion, for resisting in a certain way against another group right? If they are the oppressor. The way certain people are looked at as predators and everyone in the other group is always a victim. Is it even just with Zionists? I mean, what happened in Afghanistan, like I keep bringing up Afghanistan and Iraq. What happened in Libya? What's going on right now in Congo, Somalia, in Haiti? What we've seen taking place in South America and Central America, well, Latin America in general, really. It is, I'm tired of the oppressed being villainized and dehumanized. But what I am more tired of is how people allow the oppressor to keep getting away with it.